Is everybody ready?
Just one quick reminder before we start, as always, since this was an officer-involved shooting, we won't interview the involved officers until a later date, so we do not have their perspective at this time.
Is everyone ready?
Loud muffler leave.
Chief, if you can, just walk us through what happened that you know.
You know, earlier today, a little before 10 o'clock, officers from the Northeast Area Command were dispatched to a stolen motor vehicle at a gas station in the area of Carlisle and Montgomery. The vehicle had been reported stolen since December, and actually a citizen had spotted it and thought that it was a vehicle that he knew was stolen. The report came in, officers attempted to stop the vehicle. The vehicle fled from officers, and we had air support up. Air support was able to follow the vehicle on I-25 northbound, it sounds like, and then back southbound. And as the vehicle entered a different area command, no APD units were involved in a pursuit with this vehicle. The vehicle entered our Valley Area Command. Air support advised that the suspect had exited the stolen motor vehicle and had fled on foot to the hotel behind us. Officers went to make contact with the individual who was in the process of trying to get on a motorcycle. We don't know if he was trying to steal that motorcycle or it was actually his motorcycle. When officers went to contact this individual, the individual fled on foot. Several officers were on scene, at least 3 at this point. We do know that a less lethal option of a taser was deployed. At that point in time, there was some kind of altercation. We don't know what that was, but we do know that it resulted in officers firing their weapons. The subject is deceased on scene, and we are working to identify him. We have recovered a firearm on the scene that is not that of an officer, so we believe it's the suspect's firearm. It is in very close proximity to the individual, and we'll have to review video and see exactly where it was at the time of the shooting. This is still very early in the investigation, and we're still looking to get more information. But I want to highlight something that I think is important that we speak about. Yesterday I was in Santa Fe, and I brought up 2 very key issues to our state legislature. Actually 3. I said, number 1, you have to listen to law enforcement. Law enforcement are the professionals out here. We do this for a living. 24/7, I'm the chief, 365. The individuals on the side of me are in the same role, 24/7, 365. And we know what crime is in our city and what's affecting and driving crime. I brought up 2 very specific incidents that are occurring and a common theme, and how we think we could address this as law enforcement at the state legislature. And the 2 being that we're seeing a trend of individuals in stolen motor vehicles who have firearms, and when somebody goes to apprehend these individuals, it turns deadly. Sometimes it's an officer who is involved in a shooting, and we could count them. We had a shooting late last year in the northeast off of Menaul. We also had a bait car activation where shots were fired at the officers. We specifically brought that up with the state legislature yesterday. And the second one we brought up were shoplifters who are leaving a location and who, when somebody goes to apprehend them, they brandish or they use a firearm to get away. Earlier this morning, in our Northeast Area Command, at a local Walmart store, this played out also. I hope the state legislature understands that we're trying to work with them and we're trying to educate them on what we're seeing on the streets of Albuquerque. The 2 exact scenarios we played out yesterday for them just happened in the city of Albuquerque. We are all in this together. We need to unite. We need to listen and respect one another's professional knowledge, what everybody does for a living. Their job is to create laws, and we're trying to give them the information of what we're seeing in this city and how it could help us. And I hope that we could continue to work together, have the dialogue, and communicate with one another of what needs to be changed so that we could reduce crime in this city that we all call home. So I hope that the legislature yesterday sees that the exact things we spoke about actually played out in the streets of Albuquerque today, and we have to put an end to it. With that, we'll take any questions.
Chief, was he in the white van? Well, you said he was in a, what you thought was a stolen vehicle. Was it?
No, it's not the white van.
Can you say what?
It was a stolen pickup truck, and it's actually south of the location in a different street.
And how many officers were
We know that there were 3 officers on scene, but we don't know how many of the officers actually discharged their firearm, and we're still waiting to see if we could get additional information on that. The investigation will have to be conducted, and of course we know there'll be forensics, they'll look into the firearms, they'll review video, but we don't have that information yet.
So one more time, armed or unarmed?
We did recover a firearm on scene. What role the firearm played, we'll have to hash out those details through the investigation.
Are all 3 officers on standard administrative leave?
Yes, all 3 officers will be on standard leave until we're able to get them through. Number 1, we get some early indication from the investigation, obviously, and number 2, for their well-being and to make sure they're doing okay.
Okay, and then the vehicle, the person spotted the vehicle, called it in. Was it their vehicle or did they see it on Crime Stoppers?
No, what I believe is it was a neighbor or somebody who knew the victim and knew their truck had been stolen in the fall. It had some very distinguished characteristics to it, and they're the ones that called it in and said, my neighbor's truck was stolen, I believe.
Can you think it was Carlisle, Montgomery? There's a few gas stations around.
I think it was the Maverick gas station in that area, so.
How long did you say the pursuit was?
We didn't actually pursue it. Officers tried to stop it. When the vehicle didn't stop, APD did not pursue the vehicle, but we had air support in the air, so air support tracked it on I-25, and eventually it came down into the valley. What I was told is the vehicle headed southbound on 4th Street, and as it turned into a side street and he ditched the vehicle, northbound units on 4th Street were the ones that made contact with the individual.
Do we know how old the suspect is?
We don't have that information yet. We're still working to identify him, and officers hopefully will have that information either later today or later in the week. And as soon as we're able to release information and next of kin have been notified, we'll be releasing that information to the public.
Just one quick thing on some background on the legislation that the chief was talking about. Specifically, it was a bill dealing with the brandishing of a firearm, Senate Bill 120, and that was being heard. It's still pending in the Senate Judiciary Committee. So there was some skepticism amongst some of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee about a bill like that and enhancing penalties for this kind of crime. And that's some background to what the chief was speaking about.
Chief, and I'm sorry to ask this
Yes.
because this is completely on topic, but the suspect from the case involving the little boy,
Yes.
where is he?
You know, he was taken into custody at the border at the Columbus crossing between Columbus, New Mexico and Palomas, Mexico. He turned himself in there. The U.S. Marshal Service took him into custody. He was booked into the nearest correctional facility, so there'll have to be a process of extraditing him back to Albuquerque, so they're in the process of that. I don't know where they're at in that process, but eventually he'll be back in Albuquerque. It's just going to take time for us to get somebody down there, pick him up and bring him in. But the most important thing is he is in custody, and we'll be able to move forward and present our case of why we think that he was the individual that was responsible for that death.
And Chief, you brought up the shooting at Walmart this morning as well. Has she been apprehended?
You know, I'm happy to say that she has been identified. We think it's linked to some other cases. I was told that they're working on their arrest warrant now, and they're already looking for her to see if we could apprehend her. So we're working on that process also to see if we could take that person in custody. You know, and I just think this is a moment that, you know, we really need to thank our investigators. You know, we've put it out in the media all month. They've done a fabulous job. The number of homicide offenders that have gone to jail this month is probably no month that we've ever seen like this before. They're breaking through a lot of cases. A lot of the hard work, the changes we've made there are starting to show through. And in the end, it's the detectives' hard work that is getting us these results. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if somebody sees one of our investigators from either the homicide or our apprehension teams, to make sure and thank them, because they're out there every day. They sacrifice time with their families to see what they can do to make sure that they make the city safe and they take people into custody. So thank you.
One last question. We did see a video from a witness earlier today that he said that shows the suspect running away when he was shot at. Can you comment on that?
I haven't seen the video, but anybody who has video, we urge them to turn it over so it could be part of the investigation. Those videos are key in us being able to piece together exactly what happened. You know, we've had this question over several officer-involved shootings over time, and there's always that misconception, and I always want to warn everybody to make sure that we get proper information, because we always want people to understand that it doesn't always necessitate the fact that an individual is pointing a firearm directly at somebody or firing them. That's another misconception is, oh, the person didn't fire at the officers first. Officers are trained in the use of force. There are different guidelines. There's a lot of things that they take into account, or they're supposed to take into account, and we will have an investigation both criminally and administratively to see if policies were followed and to see if there's anything that needs to be addressed through the courts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.